Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the next episode of the Balanced Vibes podcast. Today's episode is actually a recording where Dr. Laura Goosh, who, by the way, has been on my podcast too, is interviewing me for her Instagram Live. A couple of topics we covered in this episode are how to accomplish the body composition goals that you have, how to avoid burnout while you're working towards those goals, and what else matters, because it's not only about nutrition, it's not about getting your macros right, it's not only about these things, although these things do matter. There are other things too that are super important to keep in mind. And what I really appreciate about Laura is that she always takes a really holistic, well-rounded approach to wellness herself too. She is a naturopathic doctor, and I feel like I mentioned also in this interview, every time she shares something on her Instagram, I feel like I agree so strongly that I want to share almost everything that she posts. So we are definitely on the same page. We had a really great conversation. So give this a listen. And also check out Laura on my podcast. We chatted on episode number 128, where we talked about how to thrive as a sensitive person. So if you feel like you are a sensitive person, by the way, there's nothing bad about it, then make sure that you check out that episode as well. So here we go. Here is the interview that Dr. Laura Goosh did with me a couple of days ago, and enjoy.
Hi. So I'm going to be going live today with Kirsten Kimura, and I'm going to let Kirsten properly introduce herself, but I really wanted to chat with her today because she and I have talked a lot. I was on her podcast last year, and I met Kirsten in a mastermind, and sorry, I was just getting some weird feedback from the app. Anyway, we met in Mastermind and have a lot in common around our approach to working with people, really working with the nervous system and taking a fully balanced approach to fitness, which is what she does and what I see her doing so well with her clients. And so I thought it would be a great conversation to have because I know so many people are really striving for more fitness, to, eat well, and there's a way to do it in a balanced manner. So, all right, Kirsten just requested to join. So I feel like my app is being a little slow. There we go. Hi, Kirsten.
Hello, how are you
So good to
doing?
see you. I'm doing
Same.
well. How are you?
Very good, very good. Yeah, everything's
Yeah.
going well.
Awesome. Well, I had to take an ice bath this morning since we were going to be talking. It felt like it
Oh,
wouldn't be appropriate to go live if I
oh,
wasn't
that's
feeling
awesome.
super fresh and chilled from getting into cold, because you were the person who I think really got me into trying cold exposure.
Nice. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that because, yeah, this is definitely part of my mission. Like, let's get more people into the ice and experience all the goodness. I think is great.
Absolutely. So, do you just want to introduce yourself quickly for any of my followers who aren't familiar with your work already?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Kirsten Kimura, and I am a strength coach, also a nutrition coach, mostly working with macronutrition, and also a deliberate cold exposure coach, functional breathing. So these are kind of the four areas that I include in my coaching. So strength training, nutrition, cold, and breathing. And my approach to health and fitness is really holistic. I try to use as many natural tools as we can, and there are a lot of them. So this is always like my first kind of focus. Let's do things really naturally. Let's empower women, get really strong, stop under eating, and also learn to breathe properly. So these are kind of the things that I'm working
I know
with.
it's so important. And I'm curious because I feel like when we met, at least what you talked about was a lot more like the macro side of let's look at what you eat. And I'm curious, was there a shift in the last year or so where you've really been taking a more holistic, like comprehensive approach, or is it just that you're talking about it a lot more now?
I think it's a little bit of both. I am talking about it more because I have now experienced how powerful those methods can be that we're going to talk about today, mostly ice, right? So, and also I've seen how so many women are so stressed out, and sometimes they can do all the things well with the nutrition and training and check all the boxes and look perfect on the paper, but then something's still not clicking, and it comes out that yes, the stress is just through the roof, and they either don't have the tools to manage it or they just don't prioritize it. But that's also what's holding them back from getting the results that they want with their physique. And I don't think that the physique is like the most important thing about our health, not at all. But it is a big focus for a lot of people, and it's important to kind of highlight that too.
I know sometimes I feel like it's the physique goals that draw people into fitness or the wellness world, but it's actually the much deeper benefits that keep them there. Like I can say for me, that was true. Like it's, of course, I started exercising when I was 22, and what was more important to 22-year-old me than what I looked like. But over the years, it really evolved away from that, because how you look, at least for me, wasn't like, it didn't sustain motivation. Like that doesn't get me out of bed when I'm tired and, would rather sleep for an extra hour, but the way it improves mental health and my metabolism and energy and sleep and like those much deeper benefits. Like I feel like that's what has sustained my practices, so that it's not about willpower, because wanting to look differently will only get you like very short distance, I feel like, as far as motivation.
Totally agree. The mental health benefits and just like feeling better about yourself, having higher productivity, all these things come when you focus on your health. And it's not a bad thing to have a physique goal either, but usually, you're right. What keeps people in this thing in the long term is something else. And I think the more years you do it, the more you realize, given that your workouts are right for you, because if you approach them from that perspective, I want to feel good, I want to improve my health, then you also tend to find more sustainable ways of exercising versus just like burning yourself out for the short-term goal of looking amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm curious, do you want to talk a little bit about the modalities that you like to use with people? Because I do really feel like it is totally comprehensive and holistic as far as not burning yourself out with trying to reach fitness goals.
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to food, then one of the biggest things that I see, and I think you are absolutely seeing it too, I'm sure, is that there are just so many very unsustainable, very unreasonable approaches to diet. There's always some kind of extreme to chase, right? And it almost feels like we have to put a label on our diet. I am this, like, right? I am either keto or I am OMAD, which is 1 meal a day, that type of stuff. And what I see happening a lot is that these approaches are just so extreme, and they are not available. They take away a lot of foods from people's diet. They take some food groups out from people's diet, and they're not only like, really difficult to sustain, they're often also unhealthy. And they lead to very low calorie eating also sometimes, because when we eliminate a whole food group or whole macronutrition group, then of course we're going to be like not eating enough. So what I see a lot is that people are just severely under eating, especially women. I work mostly with women. And so my goal is really to help them to get back to normal, healthy eating and eating enough. And I know it's so hard for people to think that the minimum 2,000 calories for most women should really be what you're eating. And of course, this is like generalization, and I can't speak for every single body type and metabolism, but this is roughly the guideline. You should be able to eat that and feel good versus eating 1,200, 1,300 calories and struggling and wondering why you don't have enough willpower to get through this. And you don't have enough willpower because you're not meant to eat this way. It's like biologically not meant to be like this. And when you find yourself binging, overeating, constantly thinking about food, there's nothing wrong with you. It's the most normal biological response to starvation. So this is what I want, women to understand, that they should be eating more. And this is like, the next thing that I use, like I said, is mostly strength training, muscle building. Also another kind of shift that I would like to see more often happening is like the shift away from necessarily weight loss and thinking about the number on the scale every minute, But what if we can instead start increasing our muscle mass and increasing our metabolism and feel what it actually feels like to be strong? And I know, Laura, you're working on your pull-ups right now, right? So it gives like you're doing this not so that you can like look super skinny and tiny and weigh less. No, I'm sure there's other reasons why you're doing this.
No, exactly. Well, and I feel like when you can find something like that, that for me, there was no reason other than I always really wanted to do that. I'm really tall. And so it's always been, at least I've told myself, that's why it's been really hard for me, like ever since.
Yeah.
You know, I remember being a kid doing the President's Fitness Challenge, and they said we could just hold ourselves up to the bar. And I remember holding myself up, and I couldn't hold myself for more than a few seconds. And so it's always been this thing in my head that I've wanted to do. So I've been sharing along the way, just because I'm not a trainer. I'm not like fitness. Fitness isn't my job, but I want to share that I'm just a woman. I have a full-time job, and you can still train. You can still build muscle, and that it's really fun. Like having that goal, I feel excited to go work on it and make progress. And I feel like for anyone, like find the thing that you have the goal. Like maybe it's to be able to do 100 push-ups or to do a back bend or whatever it is. But I feel like it makes it so much more fun. And I'm all about strength training.
Yeah, that's great. And there are just so many health benefits too. You know, when we're talking about again about this woman who was maybe under eating, what they're often also doing is just exhausting themselves with too much training, and it tends to be like very focused on calorie burning, so we're picking the workouts that make us sweat the most and burn the most calories. But what if we switch that completely and think about how can I get super strong, and how can I maybe break some of these myths that I've heard or maybe even told myself? Like you said, I'm so tall, maybe I have like such long arms, I cannot do a pull-up. But what if you challenge yourself that way? And one day you get your pull-up and you get this sense of like, oh my goodness, this is awesome, I could do this. So I feel like this like empowering mindset is very important when it comes to food and fitness, and just doing the hard things, not all the time, not to the point where you drain yourself and you beat yourself up, but once in a while, like challenging yourself with goals that matter to you. And that sort of brings me to the next modality, which is the ice baths, which we already talked about a little bit, and we both love. That's another thing where you just overcome something that you didn't know you can do. And there are so many health benefits other than like building mental resilience, which is important. But nervous system regulation, getting into this calm, relaxed state more often, which is, I think, most of us need, especially when we talk about stress and stress regulation. There are a lot of biochemical processes happening in the body when we take an ice bath, and we literally release the feel-good neurotransmitters in our bodies. And that's why we feel so motivated and excited and happy after taking an ice bath. And that can really, really help with stress. And this is one thing why I personally started doing it. And then the last piece is breathing. Breathing mostly, I mean, there's a lot when we talk about breathing, but a couple of most important things: always try to breathe through your nose as much as possible. This impacts your ability to manage anxiety. It impacts your ability to sleep, how calm you stay throughout the day, also your workout performance, so nose breathing, and also making sure that you don't breathe a lot from your chest, right? So when you bring your focus to your body, try to keep your chest still, maybe even put your hand on your chest and try to breathe more like into your belly and feel the lateral expansion. So this is kind of like the newest thing that I've been adding here and there. I haven't talked about it a lot, but I have seen how much it can help, especially people with a lot of anxiety, just getting the breathing right.
Absolutely. Well, and I feel like with all of those together, you really have a holistic way of being in your body and working with your body and getting, I think, so many more benefits than so many people just chase either a restrictive diet or pushing themselves with a specific exercise program. And when you include other practices, whether it's like breath work, doing the cold exposure therapy, or, you know, there's other practices people might choose to do that could get similar benefits, that it really gives you a much better system for long-term growth. You're much less likely to burn out or get injured or overtrain. And so I would guess too, people get more tuned into their biofeedback. Do you find that to be true?
Yes, yes. Because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are so much in their heads all the time, right? There's this constant
Mm-hmm.
planning, constant worrying, constant scheduling, writing to-do lists, crossing off
Right.
the stuff. So we are so much in our heads, and we kind of have forgotten the ability to be in our bodies. So when we actually listen to our bodies, what they need, we can hear it, but sometimes we have to train ourselves to hear a little bit better because we're kind of moved away too far. And this is where ice baths, I think, can be wonderful, because when you are in, let's say, like 32 to 40 degree water, this is really cold. And I'm sure everybody believes that when you get in there, there's no mental capacity for you to put together a to-do list. It's just not happening. You are so present and you're feeling everything in your body. And I think this is a really, really great way to tune into your body and notice what's happening in there. It's kind of like reestablishing this connection again, and breathing the same way. I don't think too many of us think about how we breathe or how the breath moves in our body, like where do we feel it. But starting to practice that, and like I said, focusing more on breathing into your diaphragm, that also brings your attention to your body, brings more awareness to how your body moves and what it really needs. And of course, the very simple thing of just like stop ignoring your body signs when you're exhausted. And we have this thinking that more is better and we got to push through, and no matter what, how tired I am, I have to do this because today is Wednesday and today is a workout day. But if you didn't sleep well, if you have extra stressful day, then it's better for you that you actually skip that day. I sometimes like to use that traffic light method. If what kind of day is it for you? Did you not sleep at all? Are you not well fed at all? Are you feeling super anxious? That's probably a red light for you today. Don't go and do anything crazy. If you feel a little bit better, not 100%, but could do something, maybe that's a yellow light for you, and go do some mobility or lift light weights. And then you have green days when you're like, things are going really well, and I slept well, I've been eating well. Today is like not like super draining and like million things on my list. Well, probably a green day, and it's a good day to go and challenge yourself in the gym. So that's something that's like easy to do. It's kind of like a little self-coaching tool.
I feel like if I could go back and give my 20-something self any advice, it would be to learn that system of like red, yellow, green, because, well, and even I can only speak for myself, I didn't have any sort of system to have, even that much self-awareness. And so I think now when I look at how it is, I totally follow something very similar, where I'm checking in with myself of, just like you said, if I didn't sleep the night before, or even just recently I went through moving, like literally moving homes and across country. And it doesn't mean that I stopped working out entirely, but I was under so much more stress, and there were so many new situations of interrupted sleep and inconsistent meals, and my body being a little inflamed from, random things. And so I had to listen to that feedback and, take it a little easier. I went to lighter weights. I spent more time doing mobility because I was sitting down a lot. And so there was like stiffness in my lower back and things like that. And thinking back to my younger self, I probably would have pushed through and most likely been injured at some point, because I would have ignored that tension in my back, and then it would have spasmed, or, that kind of thing where the body was, I was able to hear the whispers so it didn't have to scream. And I think that's so important. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's so important, and it's so great, because I think in the training world, there's sometimes this mindset and mentality of, you just push through, you just develop this toughness to always push through. There's a time and a place to push yourself. But I think if your biofeedback's all in place and you just don't feel like it, sure, push through, develop that like toughness. But at the same time listening when your body's saying like, not today, I need to rest, or I need to stretch, or I just need I need a long walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are many ways to, when people say that, but this is my stress reduction time, right? This is me time. There are many other ways how you can reduce your stress as well. It always doesn't always have to be pushing through. And like you said, there is time and place for it. If it's like an occasional thing, I think it trains your mental resilience, right? It's great for that. But if you're chronically stressed, if you're like always working out hard and not sleeping well, you're always actually in the recovery mode. And that's why you're also not getting results that you're getting, even if you go back and hammer yourself even more and more and more, because logically thinking, the more I do, the better I get. But it's not, if you don't recover, if you don't get that, get into that rest mode, then the results are not going to be there. And you're not going to get out of this really burnt out state by doing more stuff. It's just not how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what do you do with someone if they come to you and it's so clear that they're burned out? Like, how do you tell that they're burned out? And then how would you would you just say, come back in 6 months? Or would you still have like a modified program for that woman that's super burned out?
Yeah, I actually do have a modified program, and I want them to follow that, because if they do it on their own, they go back to doing like hour of cardio every single day. So what I could do with a person like that is, I typically don't want anybody who's in this burnt out state to do any high intensity training. I want them to go to the gym a couple of days a week and do their workouts with the focus on mind-muscle connection, feeling the muscle, more with the idea of like practicing the movement until we start feeling better. And of course, making sure that there's plenty of rest days between, so they can actually fully recover. And then of course, typically that person is underfed, very underfed, and that's why they feel so drained and so exhausted. So when we start then gradually increase their calorie intake, they start feeling better. I haven't seen anybody who says that they start feeling worse when we increase their calories from like 1,200 to, sometimes 2,200. I've had a couple of people who have started from eating just 1,500 calories a day. And then we have increased their metabolism to the place where they're now eating 2,300, sometimes even 2,600. And they look phenomenal. It's not true that you have to put on like tons of body fat now because you increase your calories. No, it's actually the opposite. You increase the calories, you feel better energized, you actually get the results at the gym. And you notice that when you are more better fed, you can do more at the gym, you recover so much better. And this is where the results come from. The results don't come from hammering yourself super hard, not eating anything. They may, at first, you may lose body weight, yeah, but it's never sustainable, and it's very, very unhealthy. I've been through this, like, I did so much cardio, I ate so little, my hormones were flat, non-existent, didn't have my period for 10 years. And so this is not the way to live. You can do it so much better. But, the challenge with a person like this is that, it's hard to believe that the opposite approach will work. And the other day, I just talked to somebody who told me that she is eating 1,500 calories, working out 6 days a week, having really intense long leg days, and at the same time running for a half marathon. And she's like, why do I want to binge? And why do I feel burnt out? And like, this is why. And she listens to me and she's like, okay, it's starting to make sense, but why don't we hear about this more often? And, it's just not as known yet, I guess. The dieting industry pushes their own agenda, and this is the opposite of that. But yeah, the chronic undereating and overtraining is not getting you results.
I love the before and afters that you post on your page, where it's different from the traditional before and after, where it's the before is someone in their under eating, overtraining, and then the after is where they're really feeding their body. And the after picture always looks more vital, more healthy, and probably more of what they were seeking in the first place, which is usually they look more toned.
Exactly.
Because, which I think is one of those words that is so frustrating, because it's really just they've built muscle. And so it's usually the physique that people want. And, I love just like, I think so much for women, there's this narrative of like, we need to eat as little as possible. Like that's the goal, just as little as possible. Like how little can you eat to get by? And that it's practically radical to say, like, what if you really like nourished yourself and fed yourself enough food to move and like do all the things that you want to do?
That's like total rebellious thing to do, right? Wait a minute, I'm a woman and like eating over 2,000 calories, like some of them pushing, towards 3,000, really, because they're so active and they fuel their bodies. And to me, like, this is freaking empowering. Do you feel how empowering it is to say that, yeah, I am eating, 2,500 calories or more? Doesn't it feel awesome? Versus like, yeah, I had like a, lettuce with like, nothing on it. It's not the same thing. I actually remember several years ago, I was at a yoga retreat, and then it was all women, I think mostly women. And, it was definitely, you could see this trend that we have to eat very little. And so we sit down for our meals. And when somebody after finishing her meal was like, you know what, I think I'm going to have a little bit more. And then it's like a whole, like a list of excuses, like, because this, I mean, I normally wouldn't, but this salad was like absolutely delicious. And I know I really should, this back and forth out loud. And then she finally went cut more food, and then a couple of other people in this table too. Like, okay, I think I'm actually going to use a little bit more too. But it was like, we need this permission for somebody to stand up and being so courageous and going and having like a second serving after like practicing yoga for 4 hours a day. Like, why not, right? You don't need anybody's permission. And again, I think it's so disempowering to think about yourself this way, that I only get to eat like barely something, just enough to get by, just enough that I don't, totally lose my mind. But yeah, it's an interesting mindset thing. You don't need anybody's permission. You don't need to tell anybody how much you're eating. You don't have to be apologetic about it.
Yeah. One of the things that helped me years ago, I struggled with overeating and binge eating a lot when I was in my earlier 20s. And I had a school assignment for a nutrition class I was taking where we had to track our food for 3 days. And it was ultimately life-changing for me, because one of the things that I was able to observe for me that I think is common, it's not always, I mean, I work with people with binge eating where I will say I do believe it can be a complete medical issue, and I work with people from that medical perspective. And for me, like, and I think a lot of people fall more into this camp, what I learned when I tracked my food is that I was under eating without knowing it. Like, I thought I was eating enough, but I wasn't. And it was because I was trying to eat the like whole food, healthy diet. And so I was eating these really low calorie foods. And then what would happen is by 5 o'clock, I would probably have 1,500 calories left. If you look for, someone who's 5'10", my size, like how many calories you need. And then the overeating was just my body asking for what it needed. And so it was this radical thing of realizing, oh, the overeating was really just my body asking for the food it was always going to need. And I just started to learn to eat more earlier in the day, and like, voila, the overeating disappeared. And it's not always that simple. But for a lot of people, I think they're under eating without knowing it. And just sometimes that awareness of tracking your food can give you great clues. I also found I wasn't eating enough protein, which I thought I was, but I didn't know how much protein was in stuff. I just was like, oh, chicken has protein and beans have protein and eggs have protein, so I must be getting enough.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing when that it's difficult about intuitive eating. I know a lot of people say, oh, intuitive eating, like if you, like this is how you should be doing this. And I get the idea. I don't want anybody to be married to a fitness or like calorie tracking app forever. But like you said, the awareness piece is huge. Like with intuitive eating, you just don't have the awareness. So how do you then serve your body best? What you can do is what you did, track your food, and you realize where the blind spots were. You didn't know about it before. And it's not that now you're all obsessed with the tracker and now you can't sleep at night if you underate protein by 20 grams. It's not like that. It's really like an awareness tool that helps you to understand what's been going on. And yeah, it's interesting that the undereating without realizing too. I think sometimes maybe we're just so busy or have a lot going on that we don't even realize that we are hungry until we have the opportunity to take a break at 5 p.m. and rest. And this is where the hunger kicks in. after all day of not eating. So that could be one of the things.
I know. And I know you and I have talked offline about intuitive eating. And it's something that I go like I really can see like the light and the dark side of it. And I like intuitive eating for certain cases. Like I think when people are going through eating disorder recovery, guided intuitive eating with a professional can be very helpful.
Sure.
And I know for me, I even came into it with an incredible background in like nutrition and going to school to be a naturopathic doctor. And still, I had a lot of blind spots in my own eating. And so just trying to intuitively eat, and it was hard. And it was one of those things that just the simple things like tracking my food and then learning, actually, I feel really, really satisfied if I get more protein and more fiber, and I actually like consciously aim for those things. And then it seems almost like once it had what it needed, my body is a lot more intuitive. Like now I probably intuitively eat, but I needed to learn more about nutrition and how nutrition works with my physiology.
Yeah.
And I think most people need that. Like
Yeah.
most people need to learn what works in their body, and just saying, it's sort of like saying like just intuitively run. Like most people would go and get injured if they just tried to intuitively train for a marathon. Like you usually have to get some input and then you run. And so it's like, I just don't think we all know how to eat. And I know some people would disagree with me on that.
Yeah, I mean, one argument that somebody who disagrees with you would say is like, well, we were not born tracking our food. Like when we were born, we knew intuitively when to stop, eating, right? When our moms are feeding us. So yes, and also the world as an adult is whole different from you being a baby and taken care of, right? So now we have so many food options around us. And I think if we only listen to our intuition, sometimes the intuition can guide us in a direction that is not great for us, because there are so many very hyper palatable foods, and it's not hard to eat only those things because my intuition said so. But was it really the best thing for me? Right. So there's
we
this balance.
We weren't born tracking our food, but we also weren't born with 24/7 grocery stores that are open every day of the year with, hyper palatable food available to us 24/7. And so I think I totally agree with you of just, and I include hyper palatable foods in my diet.
Same.
And I had to figure out how to do that in a way that I didn't feel unwell all the time.
Yeah, and there's some health issues, obviously, too, that can come from. I remember when I was recovering from my, long-term undereating and all that, I went in the complete opposite direction, which was needed because I think I did have like sort of like eating disorder-ish thing going on. So like you said, being intuitive and letting go all the food rules, it was like, I wouldn't change that for anything. It taught me a lot. I had this food freedom and it was great. It was absolutely needed for me, like mentally and physiologically, to recover. At the same time, I let it go a little too far. And what I realized that, there were days when I would just, instead of having a proper dinner, go to froyo place and have like a big cup of froyo because it was allowed now and I could do this and I kind of felt like this. And it wasn't until I started, checking my blood sugar, because I started having really bad period cramps. And I checked my blood sugar one morning, the first time I ever tried it, and it was 110. I was like, it's not supposed to be 110 in the morning. And I realized, okay, something's up with my nutrition here. And, that's an example of like when you don't know and when you don't pay attention and you only do things intuitively, it may not always guide you in the best direction. And I had to then change a couple of things. I had to have more like, have actually like a savory breakfast and have a real dinner instead of froyo, and put on more muscle, which helps to regulate insulin and all that. So it was very, very eye-opening. Another tracking tool, the blood sugar tracking, just like macro tracking, sometimes you need it.
Exactly. Looking at the biofeedback, both from your blood work, checking your blood sugar, seeing how you feel on a given basis. And I think we can use our intuition in addition, I think we like use our science-based tools, and then we can also like trust our bodies to guide us when we're in balance.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So I know that I first started doing cold therapy when you were offering a free 5-day cold immersion challenge. And
Mm-hmm.
so is that something you're going to be offering again?
Yeah, so actually the challenge that you did, that was in December, and we had like set dates when it started and when it ended. It was a 5-day
Mm-hmm.
challenge. And now I've actually just converted it into self-paced, start whenever is free for you challenge. So if anybody's interested in getting started with cold exposure, then it is 5-day challenge. We start with something really simple that everybody can do, no matter what your experience is with cold. And then we move on to day 2 when there's a little bit more challenge, and day 3 there's a little bit more challenge. But you don't have to like move on to the next day immediately if you don't feel like you're ready. Maybe you have to repeat day 2, maybe you have to repeat day 3, but eventually we will get to an actual ice bath. So this challenge will help you to build up to that, and you can, just get just sign up for it, and you will get the information into your inbox every single day, and then just see how it makes you feel. Oh, we got a fun comment.
Yeah, so that's my partner. So
Yeah.
I did your 5-day challenge and it was awesome. I feel like I had been getting pings from the universe that I needed more cold in my life, and you announced you were doing that. And so I gave it a go
Ah,
and I'm still
cool.
doing it now. I don't do it every single day, but I aim
Yeah.
to get my like 11 minutes per week, and I'm really
Mm-hmm.
consistent with that. I don't miss. And after 2 months of me doing it, my partner Adam started, and he had always said, hell no. He was like, I'm too sensitive to cold. You do your thing. You're crazy. I support you. I'm never going to do that. And then we were at these hot springs in Colorado, and he got in the cold pool, which was 55 degrees, which if you're into cold, that's like on the warmer side.
Mm-hmm.
And he got these huge benefits of back pain completely disappeared, feeling uplifted, better sleep. And so he started doing them with me. And now he just commented, I can't believe how much I love cold plunges. Like, because the
Yeah, same.
benefits just were completely outweighing the discomfort. And now he's like, are we going to cold plunge? Can we go cold plunge? And he's up to, 3-4 minutes. It's amazing. It's amazing
It
to
is.
watch that total transformation.
It is so cool. I'm so, so, so happy to hear it. And every time I hear a story like that, it gives me chills, not cold chills, but just chills. It's so great. Like, and yeah, it is uncomfortable. It never stops being uncomfortable. I think at least the first 10 seconds, I would say, when you first get started, it's like the first 45 seconds, you're like, oh, I don't want to be here. But then later, the more you practice, I've been doing this like well over a year now, for like 1.5 years. Now it's like the first 10 seconds, and then you're like, okay, I'm in it. Let's do it. It gets easier. But the benefits stay. I feel like the benefits stay. It's really awesome.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree. Awesome. Well, I definitely recommend your 5-day challenge. Can people find that just on your Instagram page?
Yes, I have the link tree there, and then one of the little buttons you can click is the 5-day cold challenge. Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for going live and that we could talk about this. I hope it was valuable for people because I just think, really moving towards fitness while nourishing your nervous system and taking care of your whole body is the best thing you can do. And so I love the work you're doing, Kirsten. I'm so glad we've been able to connect more. And
Same,
thanks for
and
doing the live today.
yeah, I appreciate everything that you do also, because I feel like most of the things, like when you post something and I see it, I just want to share it because you two, like, you have a very, very well-rounded approach, and I feel like you also always think, what can we do first naturally before we have to take like a different route, maybe. So I really appreciate everything that you do as well, and it was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you. All right.
Sure.
Take care.
See you soon. Bye
Bye.
bye.